NSFW, what's the biggest bullet you dodged? I found a carbon monoxide detector in our garage. Brand new. And opened one day. I thought, this isn't doing us any good here. So I took it to the basement and hooked it up. 2 days later it went off as our furnace got clogged with something and our basement filled up with fumes. We evacuated and the fire department came and blew out the house with some big fans. Then some guy came on an emergency service call and fixed our furnace. My wife, 3 kids, dog, and I may have all died if I hadn't hooked that thing up. I was 8 and when I went to stay with my dad on the weekend visits, I would sleep in his camper. The door was broken and you had to stick a knife in it and pry it open. Being only 8, I wasn't strong enough to open it by myself no matter how hard I tried. And had to get my dad to do it. One weekend I stayed with my dad and went to a family member's party. Being Mexicans, the party went on through the night. About midnight or so he came and asked me if I was ready to go home. He said he would drop me off so I could get some sleep, but I was having a good time and opted to stay. A couple hours later he came and got me and we headed home to see the camper fully engulfed in flames. My grandma was outside and had burns all over her hands and forearms and a big one on her scalp from trying to get inside. She was sure I was still in there and was sobbing hysterically when we pulled up. I once woke up in a house that was on fire. We were all up until about 4:00 a.m. drinking. The fire started in a wall around 6:00 a.m. So everybody was totally passed out. By the time a random passerby kicked the door in and woke us up, the smoke was so thick I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. We all nearly died. So I'd say that qualifies as dodging a bullet. You didn't just dodge a bullet. You avoided heavy fire. I was in my teens, riding as a passenger in my grandmother's car. I heard a little high-pitched SCR ping noise on the car roof briefly. Looked out behind us and there's a tree about 1.5 meters wide down on the road behind us. The scrape was the tips of the outer branches making contact before the trunk didn't quite kill us. A couple of years ago I went camping with my parents. My dad was setting up the camper on blocks while it was still attached to the back hitch. I was talking with my dad while he was removing the hitch and casually had my hand on the edge of the truck bed. I moved my hand to gesture something. And about 2 seconds later the camper fell off the blocks and fell onto the truck bed. TL. Biggest bullet you dodged? Approaching an intersection late at night on my motorcycle. Didn't see the massive patch of sand that had somehow been spread out across the road. Went to brake. Rear wheel locked and I slid into the intersection. Came to a stop in the middle of the first lane. Saw something big and white out of the corner of my vision. Was a truck. Gassed it just a bit to get out of the way. And the bike was clipped a couple inches behind my body. Hard enough for the muffler to be pushed up against the chain. Impact threw me over the handlebars. I'm slowed down while I was in the air and I remember thinking it's taking a really long time to hit the ground. Flew completely over 2 lanes of traffic and landed on my hands and feet in the middle of the intersection with cars traveling in opposite directions on either side of me. Stood up. No sliding. Not a scratch on me. Helmet never touched the ground. You dodged a whole clip. After a messy breakup I reconnect with my ex. She tells me how she got pregnant by the guy she cheated with and they broke up because he wanted an abortion. Then she tells me that the last 2 months we dated she stopped taking the pill. My current so had something similar. The girl he dated before we got together was nuts. He was in the military and she was an aspiring dependopotamus. They broke up but tried to stay friends. He thought they were friends and she was basically expecting that they would get back together at some point. He separated and she was all set to follow him home until she got knocked up by her rebound and she had to stay. I tell him that it's proof that there is a God and that God threw that poor soul under the bus for him. 4th grade I rode my bike home every day. This day I decided I was gonna wait outside to ask a girl out. It took 5 minutes. As I got home I saw 3 dudes hauling ass out my house into a white van. Our house was robbed. If I had gotten home earlier they may have robbed my house as I was eating my daily bowl of Frosted Flakes. It. Yes, she said yes. It lasted a whole 4 days. About 10 years ago my future ex-girlfriend and I, after living together for a year, decided it would be a smart idea to buy a house together. After a few months of searching we finally found one we liked within our meager price range. Made an offer. And it was accepted. However, the home inspector found some foundation issues and both the electrical and plumbing needed work, and we ended up withdrawing our offer and staying in our apartment for another year. About 10 months later she broke up with me, and shortly after that the housing bubble burst and that $120k house probably would have been worth 80. So thank God for a crappy foundation. Stayed at a friend's beach house. It was me, male, and 3 girls. One of the girls was quite friendly. And we all got drunk on the beach. Later that night, I got my own room and the 3 girls stayed in the other room. As it was the grandparents' house and I never actually met the girl whose house it was, irrelevant. But it's my best friend's best friend, so it was fine. Around 2 AM one of the girls comes into my room and gets handsy. I decide, in my drunken state, that this is a bad idea. She cuddles up with me and I'm not complaining. But I refuse sex. We lay and talk. About a week later on Facebook, I find out she's pregnant with no father. I would have probably been the one she would have wanted to be the father. Bullet equals dodged. Edit. And the time I was drugged with PCP and went into a coma. I like how being pinned with a kid is worse than being drugged with PCP and ending up in a coma based on how your edit comes across as an afterthought. I was born in a first world country to middle class parents who were both mentally and financially stable. Which one shall I tell? Oh. The time I got roofied. So I was 27. Too old. Really. For the college bar I was in. But it was walking distance to my apartment. And it was Thursday night and the well drinks were $4. So I ordered a cheap TTY well drink and then went to go smoke a cigarette outside. Everybody says that getting roofied isn't a thing. That it's women who can't handle their liquor. Bull. Shit. I came back in. Finished that one watered down ladies night drink. And suddenly I couldn't stand up. My legs were just useless. My roommate at the time saw 2 guys trying to haul me out of the bar. I vaguely remember this. She screamed at the bouncer not to let them take me. Then fireman carried my ass a mile home and put me to bed. Terry. You'd are real MVP. Me. At 16. Started dating a girl who would go on to be my long-term high school GF. She was about 1 year younger. We were toxic. But I thought she was hot and we took each other's virginity. At the time we started dating, she was about 5 feet 2. Maybe 90 pounds soaking wet. Fast forward to when I was 17. Getting ready to leave for the service in a couple months. GF turns up pregnant. Had stopped taking birth control because she wanted my baby. Literally was going to marry her because her father threatened me. She miscarried the baby about 2 months into it. Called off the wedding and wound up leaving for the service. I broke it off with her 6 weeks later. She is now about 350 pounds and has 5 kids, with 3 different dads. Major sigh of relief. A lightning strike. I was 16ish and my mom was nagging me to take the dinner scraps out to the backyard to toss in the compost bin. I asked if it could wait till the next day. A storm was rolling in and I really didn't feel like getting caught in it. I argued, I whined with her for only a few moments when we heard a huge boom and felt the house shake. The house illuminated in that moment. A huge flash of light and sound. Silencing us. We gingerly opened the sliding glass door and look in the backyard. Lightning struck the house ground right by the house. Right where I would have been standing if I was dumping scraps in the compost bin. The ground was scorched. And all I did was triumphantly announce, "See? Procrastination saves the day. I dated a girl for like 4 years. She was always a little crazy. But I had no idea how crazy. When we broke up, she suggested that I get checked for fertility because she believed I was infertile. I was so confused because that's such a strange accusation to level at someone. She then told me that she had stopped taking birth control about 6 months ago but not told me because she knew I didn't want to have children yet and she didn't agree. We were 21. Now, being in a happy relationship and looking back, she was completely batshit crazy and such a toxic person to be around. During college I was completely wasted and ended up leaving a convenience store as 2 guys walked in to rob it. Got an offer for a DBA position at a local startup. I felt a little wary because I had done mostly traditional dev and coding work and spent little time and effort on the data side of things. This place wanted to hire me because I knew about the existence of the database system they were using, Cassandra, which I have never used in any capacity. I'm serious. When I got the offer after interviewing, they told me they had better candidates, but I knew about Cassandra so they prioritized me. It all felt shady so I turned them down. Read online not too long ago that the company went under and there were some lawsuits involved. Was supposed to be at meeting in the World Trade Center on the 11th of September, 2001. Decided on the weekend to travel home and cancelled the meetings. If I hadn't, I would have been right there when the planes hit. I was in an online school's chat room. Teacher was going to give a presentation and I noticed the chat room was open to any person who happened to have a link. The chat room had options to add text on the screen or draw and everyone would see it. I had the brilliant idea to post the link on 4chan and hope the whole thing would get trolled so I didn't have to do it. So I took a screenshot of the page but it wouldn't let me post a thread because of the spam filter and the event was about to start, so I gave up. 2 weeks later I come across the picture in my folder and realized in the corner of the screen there was a list of participants and it said, "You, my first and last name. TLDR. Nearly posted full name on 4chan when attempting to start a raid." An actual bullet that was fired upon a crowd of protesters. I was in Egypt 2013. There was much more than one. Plenty actually. But I will never forget that one that tore through the awning I was standing under. There was probably other closer calls. I ended up getting shot with a birdshot later that day anyway, but I think that one was the most visually striking. I was a dumbus. I want to clarify to everyone that I was a dumbus. This moment haunts me at night. I had been up over 24 hours attempting to drive from Kentucky to Florida in the night. And I kept getting lost, making the trip take longer. I was getting impatient and reckless. I started speeding and impatiently passed a truck only to narrowly avoid a head-on collision with another truck. It was really close. This happened in October. On a Tuesday, I met a guy at a concert who I hit it off with. Wednesday, he asks me to be his girlfriend, despite having met a day earlier and knowing nothing about each other, and I said no. Thursday, I find out he not only has a baby, but he's married. I'm still in my teens. So I wasn't expecting this at all. Friday, I find out he met his wife at an amateur PRN shoot. Safe to say I dodged a smattering of bullets. My emotionally abusive ex-girlfriend. Thank FCK I got out of there. Had a thing with and briefly dated an anti-vaxxer. Ugh. I feel you. The girl I'm seeing right now is super into astrology. But she's 20. Insanely hot. And a beast in the sack. I just know it's not going to go well for me. So many nice guys. My favorite is this one man who treated me very nicely. But when I rejected him because he made me a bit uncomfortable and I didn't want a relationship, he became psycho. Attempted to dox me. And called me very rude names. I'm glad that I, an 18-year-old, have avoided becoming a nice guy. Just a few days ago I met up for the second time with a girl I thought things were going well with. But then at the end when I tried to kiss her, she said she only liked me as a friend. And I'm actually fine with that. I mean, If I didn't want to be friends with her, I wouldn't have had an interest in dating her. So I'm feeling like a well-adjusted adult and stuff. Deployed to RC South in Afghanistan, which is known for victim-operated IEDs. I was moving in a 4-man team to set Overwatch for the rest of the element. After we found our spot, dude backtracked to unwind shock tube for Claymore to set up security. Stepped on an IED and lost his legs. All 4 of us walked right over it. Only when he went back did it go off. I could go on about close calls from that deployment. He was crazy. This boy I made out with in high school asked me on a date and I said no. He's now a convicted sex offender. A couple of years back I binded off of my motorbike in the wet on a blind corner along a country lane. And ended up sliding a good 50 yards down the wrong side of the road. Fell asleep at the wheel on the highway. The impact of me catching up to the car in front of me woke me up and thankfully nobody was hurt. Minimal damage to my car and no damage to the other car. I was in the left lane and if I didn't hit the car in front I would have slammed right into a concrete divider because we were coming up to a turn which could have been the end of me. On a ship, gas tanker, going through the Gulf of Aden. Watchkeeper reports a fishing boat that has an unusually large number of folk on board. With unusual looking fishing gear and an unusually large outboard motor. It skirted around our stern uncomfortably close before proceeding towards a convoy of low freeboard tankers and bulk carriers. Eventually one vessel peeled away from the convoy and heading west. Started dating a guy I had met as a freshman in high school when I was in senior year. We hadn't been friends. Exactly. But involved in the same social circles sort of. Surprise. Turns out he's a coke dealer and talked about how hard it was not to pay his ex, my actual friend. They'd broken up amicably but she was pretty messed up at that point in my knowing her. So. That ended quick. Dude still owes me $500 after he disappeared off the face of the F-King planet. So I don't know how dodgy that bullet was. I lucked out on the Azul assault front. All that child support money I owe your mom. Walking home after a club. Swinging to kick a wing mirror off a car. Being so drunk I missed. And my foot hadn't even touched the ground when a police car drove past. Police just slowed down. Looked at us. Laughed. Said it's going to be a long night and drove off. That could have been a criminal record right there. Might have screwed up getting a job after university. Whole different life path. I should note. Vandalizing cars is a dick move. I was young. Also a dick. I had a friend who was like super into kicking wing mirrors off cars. Weirdly even. And my only pathetic defense is it rubbed off. Gave that habit up very quickly though. We've since lost one wing mirror to drunk people. So another few and I am karmically even. Nice guy end of college boyfriend. Ended up being emotionally abusive. Tried to restrict me from seeing some of my friends. And when I did finally break up with him. Sent a Facebook message to my father and I about how much of a WH-ray I was. Thankfully I called my mother and she deleted it without reading it. I hope life got better for him. But sweet God I don't think he'll ever see how horrible he actually was. Horrible enough to help convince me to try a new life in another state. TTY relationships and actual bullets. Was dating a psycho trashy skank. Stayed around because dat ass. One evening during intercourse the condom broke and I gave her a full dose of baby batter. I was sweating like a Republican at an interracial gay marriage ceremony until she took a pregnancy test. 357 I've dodged some small. 22 bullets to ones I'm trying to build up to dodger. Why not just get hit by them? That way you can build up an immunity for the bigger ones. That's how it works. Right? Your move. Literally dodged a huge bullet. 50 calories ricochet at the range came maybe 4 inches to the side of my face. My buddy Nate on a power up in Mario Kart. An actual bullet. That almost hit me. But my phone blocked the impact. You the black French guy? This will probably get buried, but whatever. My friend and I were driving over a bridge causeway when I casually noticed he was wearing his seatbelt. I figured, might as well put mine on too. Couldn't hurt. About 1-2 minutes later we rear-ended by someone going at least 40 miles per hour coming off the bridge. Car was totaled and I probably would have gone through the windshield had I not been wearing my seatbelt.